Hi everyone. So we're back. Yes, it's been a while. Apologies for the delay. Just things have been super busy, and wow, what have I missed? But look at that. We're now a partner of OpenText. So if you haven't heard, OpenText has recently completed its acquisition of Micro Focus. So now this, I guess, will be referred to as OpenText Content Manager. But this video is going to be part of a series of videos that focus on electronic records management, in particular electronic documents, and we'll look at the document properties, we'll look at some of the metadata capture options, and today we're going to start off with a Microsoft Outlook integration deep dive, just to show you how that integration works and what your options are. So let's get started. Okay, I'm going to open up my Content Manager. The first thing you're going to want to do to make sure your integration is set is to go to your personal user options, click the file menu, navigate down to the desktop options, and what we want to do is make sure that the Outlook integration is turned on. You can see I also have the Word integration turned on. The integrations between the Office programs all work the same, so I'm only going to be demonstrating with Microsoft Word. Now, once that's been done from your client, I'm going to open up a Outlook, and we'll just start this process nice and slow, and we'll talk about the three ways in which it integrates with Outlook. So a user who is integrated, you can tell the system's been integrated. I do get a Content Manager, a ribbon installed in Microsoft Outlook. Now, some of those options from left to right, we can see we've got the check-ins. We'll look at that. We'll check in with style, which kind of helps speed things up for our user. Once we've checked in a record, we have options such as opening the record or the container. And a great feature, depending on the type of email you're receiving, is the ability to check in just the attachments. So instead of registering an email that says something like as requested, we can instead extract from that email the actual electronic file and put that in as a unique record itself. So we'll go through some of these options. For the first example, I'm going to showcase how you can use the Outlook integration from the main Outlook window. As you can see, I got a toolbar here, I have an email, and this is just going to be a standard email. So without having to open the email message, as a user, I can work directly from my inbox if you want. I can go up to the simple check-in as. I just want to register this as a new record. So I'm going to click the check-in as box. Up comes a record type selection form. I'm just going to grab my basic document and click OK. Now, at this point in time, it's going to register. You can see some action going down in the toolbar. Up comes the basic registration form. Now remember, this registration form is based on your records, and the forms on display will be unique to your organization. In this example, you can see I need a title. Now that's one thing I want to point out. The suggested title of the record is going to be the subject from the Outlook message. More on that in our metadata capture video. The container, I'm just going to grab one. I think I've created a container for 2023. There we go. And then the rest of the metadata, those fields that are indicated with the red asterisk would of course be mandatory. Everything else is completely optional. I'm just going to go ahead and click OK. And one thing that Content Manager does is it now indicates to me, the user, that this email is in Content Manager. I've changed the description. It actually says registered in CM. Now that can be modified to anything you want, and the default is simply a CM:. I've just wanted to make it a little more expansive so we can see that it is actually in email. Now, those other buttons I was talking about, now that this record exists in Content Manager and it still exists in Outlook, now best practices might be to delete that, but what we're going to do is now I have the option to open the record. My current Outlook is associated with the desktop. So what happened here is this is a new setting in Content Manager 10 and 10.1. Your ability to indicate what actually happens when you want to view a record. In this example, what it did is it opened up the record properties. So again, I could make some edits here if I had sufficient permissions. But I don't really like that behavior. I actually want to open the record in Outlook. So what I'm going to do is just simply click OK to this message, go up to my system options. Where is it? Maybe I cut this out. I don't know. Let me just see. Where is the, I think it's in, I remember where it is now. So the other thing you'll do is you'll have a whole Content Manager options box on your menu. And I'm going to come up here and right here, use the properties when opening a record. I just want to turn this particular feature off. And then I'm going to click OK. And now when I click here and click the open record, it's actually going to take me, in my case, to the desktop client, to that email message that I just registered. So that's kind of cool. Going to close Outlook and let's look at this action again. So the next one here is I'm going to showcase from two things. I'm going to show you how we can use it from the email, because a lot of times you're going to double click on a message to open it and then you're going to review it. So now here I have an open message on my screen. There's the Content Manager toolbar, and I've got some similar options that I had when I used it from the main toolbar. I can check it in as with style. More on that in a moment. And I can check in the attachments. Now this is the feature I was referring to earlier, where instead of registering this email, which really has no value, the message isn't of any value, it's the actual attachment. What I'm going to do now is click in the attachments. It's going to come up with a dialog. Now this is important because nowadays when people send their emails with their signatures and their little graphics and icons and logos, all of that is extra. So I don't want to always check in the logo for information first every time I get a message from myself. So what I have now, this window allows me to deselect or select the attachments I want. I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to grab a specific record type. I'll use that basic record type again, click OK. And now this email is in. Now, of course, I've selected it. It brings up that registration form. I'll put it in my same container, click OK. And now I've registered the attachment only. Let's take a look at it. This time though, let's look at it through the web client. I'm going to open up the web client. I'm going to go to my favorite records. Here is my 2023 folder I've been using. If I expand that down, you can see there's the Word document. So that represents the attachment I saved. And below that is the email message. And that's what it would look like when you register an entire email message. Now notice, even though I extracted the attachment, it still indicates to me in the subject that it has been registered in Content Manager. So again, as a user with the setting to not delete, I now know that, hey, I don't need to register this particular email again. Okay, now let's move up a level to check-in styles. Now, what is a check-in style? Think of a check-in style kind of as a macro. It's going to be either you presetting some information that you always do. For example, I always move certain emails into a certain folder, or I always select a certain record type for a particular email type. So what I can do first is show you some of these check-in styles. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my check-in styles window here. It's going to open out a kick-out menu to the right, and we can look at these. So I've created 3 check-in styles. One is just a standard email check-in style. So I'm going to go to click to select it. I'm going to go to edit it, and we can look at some of the options here. So this allows me to preset a few things so that I don't have to when I register emails. First thing is I give it a name, standard email. I also defaulted in the record type field the default record type I want to use. In this case, I don't have to make that selection each time. It's a great idea when your organization has a lot of record types. Further down, you can see a bunch of different options: container, classification, addressee, etc., author, even show the dialog box. So what I'm going to do here is just show you that you could potentially delete an email after a check-in. You can do a couple of different options, but let's see how this check-in style works. So I'm just going to cancel this one. I'm going to grab this particular email using my check-in style. So instead of doing the check-in as button, I'm going to go right beside it to the check-in as, select that, and I'm going to grab my standard email. So the one thing this will do for me is save that step where I have to select the record type. It's going to go off, it's done its thing, and here I am right to the registration form. I'll go ahead and select my container and click OK. So there's my third example using a check-in style. Okay, so we've just finished seeing the ability to check an email message right from the inbox and using a check-in style. So I'm going to do that 2 more times, and then I'm going to show you how you can apply a check-in style in combination with a folder and kind of semi-automate the entire process. So just to recap, on this particular email, I'm just going to use the standard check-in style here, which is the general email. I can show you what these settings are. On this particular check-in style, I'm basically sending it to a container, and that's about it. So I'm going to just show you that one. I'm going to say check in with style. I'm going to select the general email, and it's going to do its thing at the bottom, and it should get renamed. And there we go. We now see that it has been marked registered in Content Manager, and the file still exists. For the next one, I'm going to make one option change where I'm going to delete the item after I register it into Content Manager. For this, and the recommendation would be that it's going to remove it from Outlook and it only exists in Content Manager. So for that one, I'll show you the properties of that check-in style. I'm going to edit it. The only difference here is it's going to a different folder and it has the delete after check-in flag turned on. So again, I'm going to grab my record, select a check-in style, and this one is going to be to Content Manager and delete. Select that one. It's going to do its thing. take a few seconds, and now you see the email message has been destroyed or deleted or removed from Outlook. I don't want to get too melodramatic here. Okay, so for this last example, what I'm going to do is combine both a Outlook folder that we all typically create and a check-in style that is linked to that particular folder. Let me open up the check-in style just to show you what the settings are. It's going to be the linked folder one. I'll edit its properties, and you can see here I've got the name, I've got a record type, container. I've added in at the very bottom here, you can see I've added in a link to my Outlook folder called CM Demo. And that's what's going to link this particular folder with the container in Content Manager. Now I could drag and drop. I can also right click and select my send to, and I'm going to select the folder I want to move it to. And you can see that Content Manager is doing its thing at the bottom of Outlook. And what I'll simply do is go click on my folder. And when I come into the folder, you can see there's the email that I moved in there, and it has been registered in Content Manager. One of the great things you can do with this now, using the Content Manager ribbon in Outlook, is I could do something like open the container. Clicking on this button will give me the choice to open the container or the classification. And you see it takes me right to that container. If I expand this, I can see that email that I just registered. Now, the other thing I could potentially do is instead of going to the container, I'd have the option of going right to the record. So I can actually click this record, select Open Record from the Content Manager ribbon, and now it's going to go one step further and take me directly to that individual email. Now, the beauty of that email is if your viewer settings are set up properly, when I hit the View button up here in the Home ribbon, it's going to actually open up an email message in Outlook, which is ready for me to reply, forward. I can now manage this email message from within Content Manager, and I can potentially send out a reply to a user, even though it's been registered in Content Manager. So that's all pretty great stuff that you can do with the integration in Content Manager. Let me return to Outlook and just remind you that we have emails showing that they have been registered. I have linked folders. I have check-in styles. Now, the last thing I want to showcase to you. Okay, so I've just made a few changes. I went to a different environment, and what you're seeing on the screen now is the Office 365 integration with Content Manager. Now, the idea behind this type of integration is it allows a user who doesn't necessarily have Content Manager installed on their local machine to interact with a Microsoft Outlook online version, as well as the Content Manager web client. So they could effectively log and manage their emails from Office Online without even having the desktop client. So let's take a look at how that works. You can see right now I have on my screen just one particular file registered today. I'm going to jump on over to my Outlook account, and here I have to give a little shout out to PJ, so thanks for the image. Here I'm going to come and I can see I got one email message from the administrator, which is a health and safety policy for 2023. Now, what I can do, you'll notice in my list of folders, I have a Content Manager section, and I have some linked folders underneath here. Now, these folders are the ones that are assigned by the administrator and are accessible to whoever you deem worthy of receiving them. What I can do if I'm just going to manage these email is I can just simply click, hold, and drag it into a folder I want. And since this is an HR policy, I'll put it in here and let go. Content Manager is going to do its thing automatically and register that email for me into Content Manager. So if I jump on over to my Content Manager ribbon that I have open, let me rerun that save search for today's documents. And sure enough, almost instantly, you can see that email now appears in Content Manager. I can click on it to view it, and sure enough, there are my settings. So the Outlook integration is extremely robust. Whether you are using the Outlook desktop version, you're accessing it via the ribbon, accessing it via the individual emails, the ability to have check-in styles certainly expedites and helps you manage a large volume of emails as well as a large volume of record types. And then finally moving it on in here to show you the web client version where a user could interact with Office 365 online and register documents in Content Manager. Thanks for watching. Like I said, this will be a part of a bigger series which will feature electronic documents, metadata capture, all in preparation for electronic records management. Thanks for watching.